Hey there, welcome to part 4 of the Marvelous Mass Workshop. We are going to finish this up this time, and whenever we last ended, we had this balloon over here hanging out in the side that we kind of created a little basket action for at the bottom. We're going to position that because when we initially brought it in, we didn't resize it or anything. So to resize, Control T brings up our transform controls. As a reminder, always hold Shift when you're transforming. If you're pulling from a corner and you hold Shift, it will maintain what we call the aspect ratio so that it scales properly. Now, I'm holding Shift now. I'm going to not hold Shift and do this. And despite my best efforts, notice that it can change. It gets smashed or it gets stretched. Now, you might not be able to tell the difference, but I know exactly what it's supposed to look like. So it's pretty obvious to me if it's out of its aspect ratio. So I'm going to hit the no sign and try again. Control T, always hold Shift from a corner. It only works from a corner. It does not work from a handle that's not in the corner. Okay, so Control T, scale it down. If you are going to rotate it, you're going to point out here. You can let go of Shift while you're rotating here, and we'll rotate it around. Whatever direction you want it to go is fine. Then you can go ahead and pick it up and move it. Now you can hit your check mark and then switch to the Move tool, or you can pick it up and move it while you're in Transform, but just be careful, because this little dot here, people accidentally grab a hold of all the time. It is actually the rotation point here, the registration point. It's what it rotates on, so it's not like it's bad or you're going to break anything, but that's not how you move it. So just be sure not to point to the middle, point over here a little bit, and then we can position this wherever we want it to be. All right, once you're happy with it, hit your check mark, and we are done with that part of the balloon. But next, we're going to take this pretty balloon and change that ugly green color, this neon green. We've decided we don't want neon green on our balloon, so we're going to make a selection. And we could certainly select this with any of the tools you've learned so far. However, I find it to be really handy that they have this thing called color range under the select menu. So I use that as a tool, especially when I'm dealing with like pictures on green screens, because it's really hard to select around hair on a green screen. So how that works is, first off, be sure you're clicked on the thumbnail of the image, not on the layer mask. If you click on the layer mask, the balloon might disappear. So be sure you're clicked on the actual image itself, because we're going to be making an adjustment to this. And right now, we're just selecting it. So select and then color range. And then while you're in here, you're going to click on the eyedropper and then click on the green. And in this picture, this preview, you should see it's selecting the green. And there's a selection preview here where you can like select it and look at it on quick mask or on black or whatever, so that you can kind of see how it's selecting. Now, I know that I didn't get all of that, so I'm going to choose this +1, and I've got my selection on none right now so I can see these colors again, and I'm going to choose a darker green. I'm going to click in some of these darker green areas. Okay, now I'm going to go in here again and look at it. All right, see, we've got much more selected now. And then this fuzziness decides how far into that we go. So notice I pull that up some, we get some of those wrinkles out of there, and now it's getting a better selection. And you could go even farther up, but you don't want to go too crazy. You're better off to go in and just click some areas again to add them in. All right, now once it looks like it's a pretty good selection, you can go ahead and hit OK, and the marching ants should be marching around the green parts. And it looks like I have a green part down here too. You could get rid of that part. I could stick this lasso on minus and just not change these colors. Just get those out of there. All right, so now it's just these green parts. What we're going to do is we're going to add an adjustment layer. And we've done these before. A hue saturation adjustment so we can change the green. So while our marching ants are there, I'm going to click on this little hue saturation adjustment layer button on the layers panel and then choose the hue saturation one. And now as we move this, notice that there's just the teeny tiny white specks. Those are the areas that are going to obey this hue saturation adjustment. So it's a very small part of the balloon. But as I drag this back and forth, see, we see the color changes happening. Okay. So hue is the actual like color of a color, what it's most known as, its color name. Luminance is basically what's going to affect the like lightness or darkness, and saturation is how much of the color. So we're going to be trying to mess with these sliders to get the color that we want for this, and we want kind of like a maroon, kind of a maroonish red. So this is almost the same color that I already have. So I'm going to pull the saturation down some so it kind of, it would go grayscale if I went all the way down. I'm not going to go all the way down. Just come some, just kind of give it a maroon color. And we could even darken it if we wanted to make it a little bit darker. So there we go. Don't want to go too much because you don't want to lose the pretty effect here. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to clipping mask this in. And there's a button right here on properties to do that. Or we've already talked about we can right click and do it. Or we can alt click between layers. But let me show you what happens if I don't. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but if we turn the balloon off, see, there's that clipping mask, or there's the hue saturation adjustment layer. It's behind there. So even though it's not clipped to our layer, it still affects the layers below it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this to clip it. And now if I turn off this layer, it actually doesn't go through. Okay. And just like earlier on, you know, I could link these two layers so that when I move one, it moves the other. And then they stay stuck together. And that's usually a good idea with anything that's clipping masked. All right. So that's that. I'm going to Control 0 to take a look once again at the whole picture. Looking pretty good. One last little thing we're going to do is we're going to select this girl, and she's got some hair blowing in the wind, so it's a complicated selection. We're going to File Open. We're on number 35 now at this point. File Open, and we are going to bring in our girl, the 9C image. Here she is. I don't need all this ocean business, so I'm just going to take my marquee selection tool and again select just the girl. That's all I need, and bring her over. Now in the beginning example, if you look back in your handout on the first page, she's going to be like standing here like she's apparently in the road somewhere behind our hand and we just can't see her, and she's looking at all, you know, the stuff here. So I'm going to open this up. And like we said, we move her over, and then we're going to make a selection. Now I'm going to scale her down later, so right now we'll just leave her as she is. When we select, we're going to over select the hair. So we're going to use the quick selection brush. That's the one you brush over. Okay. And to be honest, we only need, you know, we need to get down here with the where her jeans are, but we don't need these little holes under her arms. So you may have to go in here and minus out. Now, a quick tip is just to hold the Alt key, and it will change from a plus to a minus, and you can minus out those areas really quickly that way. Now, this is probably going to go grab that again when I try to get this arm here. So I'm just going to let it be. Oops, that went way too far. So you could vary your tools, you know, like the magnetic lasso is a lot easier to go around the edges of arms than this quick selection brush is because it's kind of circular. So you could certainly go through and use multiple selection tools. You're not tied to just one tool. So like while I'm on here, I could come in and grab my magnetic lasso, make sure it's on plus, and then I could click here and just go around the edges of her arm and add them in. Come in here and come up and add that in, just double click. And now that's in there. I'm missing a little piece that I didn't grab. Like so. There we go. So see, you can do that. You can add these in this way. You don't have to stick with just one tool. You can add in from multiple tools. So if there's a tool you like for one thing, but it's not great for another, it's no big deal. Now I'm even going to go back to my quick selection and get some more of this hair in here. So it's okay that I don't want all this sky in here, so I'm going to minus that out. But it's okay that we have a little more hair than we need. Here, it's actually not a bad thing. Make sure we get her nose, and I need to get rid of this. I'm going to hold down Alt while I'm using this to get underneath that neck and get that out of there. And there may be some areas that aren't perfect, but this is good for now. Okay, so we'll grab in a little bit more of this. All right, so next up, we're going to get into Select and Mask like always. We can definitely see this is an issue. Some pretty bad hair there, right? So what's up next is we're going to use a tool we haven't used yet, which is the Refine Edge brush. So when we click on the Refine Edge brush, it's kind of gonna, if you click in those areas where like that sky is, it's going to try to get rid of that sky. So I'm gonna come in here and just click one time right in there, and click one time right in there, click one time right in there. I don't like to over click on these because it might get a little crazy. All right, so there we go. We're kind of getting rid of those pieces. It's looking better, looking better. And that's why I said it's better to over select, because it's easy to get knock these little pieces out, but it's not as easy to add in big wisps of hair. Now you can rub over these pieces of hair a little bit, and it's going to add those in. See, as I'm going there. It's kind of hard to tell because I've got this transparency turned down, but if we turn it up, you can see that's kind of what we're getting there. So there's some areas that I still need to get. And if something goes away that doesn't need to go away, like you're missing parts that you need, then we can add those back in by using kind of the reverse of this, which is the minus on this brush. So if it's like making parts disappear, I can brush back over. This would bring that sky back in there. And then if I want to get rid of it again, I can go over it again, like so. I'll be honest, it's not the world's most perfect tool, but it is the easiest way, really, to deal with hair whenever you're dealing with selecting in Photoshop. Okay, so it's not terrible. We're going to be scaling it down anyway, so, but you can see, here's kind of our before, there's the after. If there was other pieces of hair I felt like I needed, like on top of her head, I'm missing a little bit on the very top, bless her heart, then I can add those in. Just the old-fashioned way still works. You can still paint stuff in and add it in there. Or if you go too far, you can take that refine edge brush and, refine edge brush and click on those areas and get rid of the areas that you don't need. All right. Looking good. So let's go ahead and check a look where that's over, and it's good. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and output this out to a layer mask and hit OK. And then we need to make some changes to her. Now, if we start to resize her, it's possible that we're going to see some lines form from her edges. So I'm going to go ahead and press Ctrl T. Where these borders of this line, where the borders of this line is, we could have some issues. I'm going to hold down Shift and pull down. We're going to make her small and kind of stick her in here like she's watching, checking things out. Probably also want to line her up with the bottom of the phone as best you can. And this is going to require really zooming up close because you want to line it up perfectly. And you can use your arrow keys even to get things to line up. You can decide whether you want her like in front of the car or not. But that looks pretty good. One thing that you might notice about her, though, is she's a little bit dingy compared to the rest of the image. She's kind of dark where all these things are like in the sun, and she's kind of not. So I'm going to go ahead and name this layer 9C. And we're going to go ahead and make an adjustment layer to her. So we'll do that levels adjustment. That's the one that we've done before. That works. So levels adjustment right here and levels. And then we can start pulling those up. And we want to pull in the whites. Now again, right now, it's doing it to everything. We only want it to affect our girl. So let's go ahead and clipping mask that in. You can do it from here or right click. All right, now we're only adjusting her when we click on these. See that? She's getting brighter and darker. That grays, those middle tones, if they're washing out, then you can adjust those. Look how much better that is. There's before and there's after. It's a huge improvement and makes her look like she belongs there a little bit more. So, yeah, that's looking pretty good at this point. Now, if you were afraid of her like popping out when she shouldn't, we could have also clipping masked her inside the inside of the phone. That's also another way to go about making sure that, we don't have to line her up exactly on these borders. But either way works. All right, Control 0 here to zoom out and take a look at it. Looking pretty good. All I did really was scoot this over and add some additional text to the top. Remember, it's a good idea if you're adding, especially when you have all these clipping masks, if you're adding something to be clicked on the topmost layer. I had a font that I downloaded called Angeline, and I don't think I have it on this computer. It's a really nice font, but you can find any kind of cursive font or whatever that you want to use for this. I typed in Experience above Colorado here, so we'll just do it again. Experience, and I'll make it white, and then just pop it in there wherever you want it to be. So there you go. And again, if I wanted to set this off a little bit, I could give it just a tiny bit of a shadow just to give it a little bit more depth. There we go. Awesome. So this is essentially it. If you've made it to this point, congratulations. You have completed the Marvelous Mask Workshop, and I hope you learned a lot about using selection tools and masks in Photoshop. Happy selecting.